good morning, everyone. Welcome to Body of Christ Real Talk with your host, Joseph Brownlee. Welcome to the show. Happy Father's Day. You know, through the years, I never really put a lot of emphasis on holidays. I have gave up on celebrating holidays quite a few years ago. Now, because I did, that does not mean I don't respect it, and I can I understand the metaphor and I understand the concept of Father's Day. And I'm not going to go into the history of that, but when I think of Father's Day, you know, the way I look at Father's Day is a father that's there, a father that's tried his best, you know, not so much verbally all the time, but in actions, you know. When I look at father that was in the house, or daddies, you might want to call it, because I know there's only one Father, and that's God. But for understanding and stuff like that, I just use that term. Many people might say Daddy's Day. And or somebody might say, well, there's a difference between the daddy and the father. I get that concept as well. I understand what they mean by that. It makes a lot of sense. So not to make things very confusing on what I'm talking about, I want to talk about my dad. My dad, you know. I think about years ago, man, when I was little. And the family was, I'm just saying I'm going to go by my experience when I was little, growing up with my dad. And he taught me more than I ever thought. I'm paying attention now, but my dad taught me a lot without saying a lot verbally to me. I grew up not remembering my dad saying he loves me. But I knew he did by his actions. And if he did, I don't remember. I'm not saying he never did. But I grew up with a dad that showed it with his actions, how he took care of us. And it was a lot of us. It was 11 of us, and 6 boys, 5 girls. And I think about how my dad held it down and how he took care of us without going into full details of that past. Let me give you a few examples where my dad, his kind of rules that was in the house. My dad was a television technician or a television repairman, or in the old days, a TV fixer. And he fixed the majority of the neighborhood's TV, people's televisions and TVs and radios and record players and stuff like that. My dad was known as the intelligent one, as we will call today, the techie person in the house. He was very tedious when it came to televisions and radios and stuff like that. In the house, he was one of the most intelligent persons in our household. I really believed that growing up. My dad was laid back. He was somewhat quiet. But my dad is laid back. He was somewhat quiet, and a nice man, but a stern man in a sense. And he didn't say a lot of things verbally. He showed his actions. He never tried to be someone else. He just was who he was. What I know about my dad, you know. And my dad, majority of the time, he was in the basement where his office was on Elizabeth Street in Morgan Park, Chicago. And then they built the garage in the back. Then his office moved to the garage. And the majority of the day, my dad was in the garage, But before that, when I was very little, one thing out of several things that my dad taught me about his love, the way he expressed his love, which wasn't verbally, was his actions. How we took care of us, how we made sure the food was on the table, how he disciplined. I never got many whoopings, as we called them there, from my dad, but when he did, I remembered, you know. And one thing that Dad taught me, and I didn't catch that on till later, was this thing he used to do called allowance. You might say, what is it? Allowance. Dad used to give us allowance weekly, the family allowance. That's when dollars and $2 stretched a long way back in the early 70s. A long way, man. The economy got so wicked and rugged now. But he gave us our allowance weekly. But the beautiful thing about that, and the catch was, in order for us to get our allowance, we had to do our chores, especially over the weekend. We had certain chores we had to do and complete those chores before we got that allowance. So it wasn't just he gave us allowance, we have to work for it. And people today don't understand that, because Dad taught us something that I try to talk about with myself right now, how to work and how to be financially independent. And what he had taught me that I can explain now, he used to give us allowance. And I don't know many families that used to get that, but I know my dad gave us allowance. $2 or something. It was about $2. That's when, $2 went a long way then in the 70s, the mid 70s and going into the late 70s, And he done that for quite a while, giving us allowance, but we had to do our chores, whatever our chores was. It was just like a job. You work, you get paid. You work, you get paid. He didn't just give us this. We had to do our chores. You work or get paid. I didn't look at none of that all that then, like that then, because I was just too young. I didn't look at that like that then. But now I can see Dad taught us something. Did he do that because he understood how important it was that you have to work, you have to earn before you got something? I believe so, but I'm not sure. I believe so because he never talked about why he done it that way. But I think about now, I believe a lot of the great wealth builders and people done it that way with their children as well. They just didn't give them everything. Their children have to earn something to do, whether it's doing a chore in the house or whatever, to get that money. It's like capitalism in the house. Capitalism, you paying for goods. But my point is, Dad gave us an allowance, and we always look forward to that allowance. And we didn't get that allowance. We know it had to do because we didn't do something we were supposed to do over the weekend with our chores. But Dad showed his love by his actions. He took us to drive-in movies. Many families never experienced that. Dad took us to drive-in movies when drive-ins was popular out in the 70s. He took us to the drive-in movies every weekend, almost every weekend. He showed his love that way, without words, but actions. Dad used to come in late at night when he used to work at night, or even when he was in the clubs then, when he played in the band at clubs. Dad would come in to bring in White Castles. So we used to stay up just because we knew Dad was going to bring us something late at night when he came in. He brought White Castles, the White Castle hamburgers, and stuff like that. Dad brought us in for the family. We had a big family. Another action he showed without saying anything. See, Dad had a unique way. He was very impatient with nonsense. He hated gossip. The way he spoke was very intelligent. He used words that we weren't used to hearing in the house because Mom didn't talk that way because she only grew up a certain way. But Dad used intelligent words. He used words that we used to joke about and mock Dad because of the schematic and different things he used to tell us. I remember Dad used to tell us to go downstairs, to tell me to go downstairs to get the schematic. And if you hear something about a schematic, then I thought that was some type of tool or something, but a schematic was something like a diagram or some type of draft on a paper or something, but I didn't know it did. But I don't know. I guess Dad assumed we should have known. He used to go down and get my schematic, and if we didn't know what it was, he used to get angry. But Dad was an intelligent man. I'm gonna tell you why I say was. And those things Dad taught me growing up. I knew my dad loved me. I had no doubt my dad loved me. It wasn't in a verbal way. I don't think that would have made a difference. If you hear stories, I never heard my mom and my dad tell me they loved me, but I want y'all to understand. And I know it's very important for a child to hear their parents say, I love you. I agree with that. But sometimes we can wait for that so much and forget the actions, them showing it. It's just like a marriage and a relationship. Words are powerful. Yes, a man and a woman need to hear those words, especially a woman. But sometimes we get, okay, if they like that, if that's the way they flow, look at their actions. They probably wasn't brought up using love, the word love all the time, saying I love you, like the traditional way that most people want to hear. It's the actions. I use love a lot now. You know, when I say I love my son, whether I want to say it or whether I feel it or not, because it's not about your feelings. But thinking about growing up with my dad, how he took care of all those kids, 11 of us, before some of them left out the house. And that allowance thing and the Christmas present. We didn't get much, but we got the Christmas presents and stuff like that. How dad showed his love by what he done. And I believe a lot of families can relate to that. Dad showed his love for what he done. Even when he made us go to church, he made us carry his stuff out. You know, far as his speakers, when speakers was gigantic, you know, those old-fashioned speakers was heavy, man. We had to take it up the stairs and take it out to the car and take it to church. That's when Dad finally started going to church, because he didn't start off that way. And we started finally, there ain't no word, but we started going to church, and we had to take his stuff to the church for the band and everything. That built discipline in myself. See, you have to work, you have to do things even if you don't want to sometimes. And that's what I want to always remember about my dad. He showed his love not in words, even towards me. That's what I remember. I'm just talking about myself. I don't know about my sisters and brothers. Not in words, but his actions was enough for me to know that he loved me. Somebody say, your dad ever tell you he loved me? No, but he showed me. That's my answer. He showed me. And that's good enough for me. See, he never sat me on his lap and said, I love you, Joseph. Not all of them kids that he had, but he showed us by his actions and how he took care of us and how he brought things home and how he made sure food was on the table. He showed it by taking us places. I don't remember having a long conversation with Dad growing up, but because he showed his love so much. That was unique about Paul Brownlee. Laid back, personal. I got some of my ways from Dad as well as my mom. You know, personal, giving. And a lot of times we just had to work for that allowance. And that, I guess, that was embedded in me. Was it purposely embedded in me by my dad? I don't know. It had to be. It had to be. You know. And he probably got that from Grandpapa. I don't know. I never heard the story why he done things that way. But to answer a question, did your dad, if somebody ever asked me, did your dad ever say he loved me? No, but no. I don't remember, but he showed me by the way he took care of me. And his love was showed by his actions. That's a Father's Day remembrance of my dad. What is yours? God bless you all. Real Talk, Joseph Brownlee, Body of Christ, Real Talk. Happy Father's Day to my dad, Paul Brownlee Jr. I love you, Dad. I love you so much. God bless you.